Hi, everyone. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you. Welcome, Steeler Nation. I'm Merril Hoge. I am about to be joined with two of the greatest people on planet Earth. But for a formal introduction, first, Hall of Famer, Coach Bill Cowher, and one of the best owners in all of sports history, the president of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Art Rooney II. How you gentlemen doing?
We're doing good.
Great, Merril.
And I apologize. I'm in black and white here with no green. I'm at my vacation home in North Carolina. Didn't bring anything with a collared shirt. I had to get away from the cold of New York. So I apologize for not supporting you with the green outfit, but I will have it on at some point on Wednesday.
They understand that you're down there in a warmer climate and you're okay without the green. Because this is all about the Hall of Famer. I'm going to start with you, actually, Bill. I know that you were elected in 2020, but based on not being formally introduced because it got canceled in 2020. But finally, in about 5 months in 2021, you will be formally inducted into the Hall of Fame. How hard has it been to hold these emotions together all this time?
It's funny, Merle. I said, in 2019, getting into the Hall of Honor with the Pittsburgh Steelers was pretty a special moment for myself. And then to turn around and a few months later to be inducted to the National Football Hall of Fame was just an incredible experience, very humbling. And, and then all of a sudden everything kind of came to a halt. But I look at it this way, it really gave me a chance to do a lot of reflection, to maybe reprioritize and to really just to soak in what it really means to be in the Hall of Fame. And again, the incredible amount of people that are there, and again, the responsibility you have and how humbling it really has been. So I look at it this way. I've had 2 years to celebrate instead of one.
All right, Art, let's go back to the beginning. 1992, Chuck Noll retires. The journey now to find a new head coach. A little sidebar. There were some coaches on the staff at the time who wanted to be the next head coach for the Steelers. And I actually went into your dad, set up a meeting to talk about those possibility of coaches of being the next head coach for the Steelers. I set up a meeting. Your dad had an open door policy. I was sitting there. He walked in. I started telling him what I was thinking and the things that I had heard. He didn't say anything. Gets up, walks around his desk, and shuts the door. So as soon as he did that, I was like, uh-oh. But he comes back, and as direct as Mr. Rooney was, he was like, Merril, we're starting over. And we talked a little more. Thank you for coming in. And I left, and I really didn't know what that meant, but about a month later, we see the announcement that Bill Cowher is going to be the next head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, you and your dad in 1992, what stands out with you on that journey to finding and hiring Bill Cowher?
Well, Merril, it's funny. We started out with a list, obviously, of a bunch of names, and all there were on the list were the names and their ages. And I remember seeing Bill's name with 34 was the age beside his name. And we were talking about should we really interview this guy who's only 34 years old? And thank God we decided to go ahead and have the interview. And obviously meeting Bill for the first time was pretty clear. He was a real candidate for us. And, the thing I think I should mention at this point, because we just lost Marty Schottenheimer, as you know, and in hiring somebody as young as Bill, having a reference from somebody like Marty was really critical. So just want to mention that, we're sorry that Marty is no longer with us, but thankful that he took that phone call from my dad that day to give us the reference on Bill.
Well, you're right, Art. I had a chance to work with Marty for a little bit at ESPN, and I learned so much in 2 years from Marty. And you're right, our condolences go out to his family, and he's just a great man and a great coach. And Bill, I know that he was instrumental in your coaching career. He got you started. Tell us what you remember before being hired as the next coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers that stands out in that interview process.
Yeah, I think. Again, I was in Kansas City and I heard my name was being talked about. And it's funny because the season was over and I was in there, doing your checkups and everything. You're going through all the cut-ups and everything else, setting up the schedule for the off season. And I'd come home and they would say, did the Steelers call you? I go, no one's called me. I says, I know you hadn't got a call. So it was probably about 4 days. And so after 3 days, I'm going, you know what? That's okay. Whatever. It's just not meant to be. And I'm fine. I got a great job right here. Then all of a sudden they called like on a Thursday. I'll never forget that I was down working out. And Kay goes, someone from Pittsburgh Steelers just called. And I go, okay. So we talk, and I just will always remember that process being one that, you know, I came in and saw Art, but then I'd go back and all of a sudden I'd get a call. It's from Dan Rooney. And Kay would come over and, you know, that's when you had the phone. And I'd go, yeah, well, school. And yeah, we're going to try to get away. And yeah, parents are doing great. And all of a sudden Kay's going, what kind of conversation? How I go, he hasn't asked me a thing about football yet. He wants to know, how are your kids doing? How are your parents doing? Are you guys going to get away for a little bit? Are you going to come back to Pittsburgh? How about your brothers? I go, okay. And he goes, and then are you going down to the Senior Bowl? Yeah, I'm going down. I'm like, okay, that's like the first question he asked. This one of us is even going. So, and what I took away from that was how important it was to get the right person, not just the right coach. Someone that understood the culture, understood what they're coming back to. And obviously being from Pittsburgh and understanding the roots of that, it was pretty special.
You know, Bill, Marty Schottenheimer's already been mentioned here. You put together one of the best coaching staffs, maybe arguably in NFL history. When you think of just your defensive side of the ball, you have Dom Capers, Dick LeBeau, Marvin Lewis. Offensively, you brought Ron Earhart in. You had Dick Holt, who was one of the greatest position coaches in this history. How important was that staff in putting together for once you became the head coach for the Steelers?
Oh, it's everything. You know, I think getting Ron Earhart to come in there and institute an offense that just fit the personnel that we had. You know, We had Barry Foster. We had an offensive line that's probably as good as anybody in the National Football League. And, you know, and it was, okay, let's open this up to Bubby Brister and Neil O'Donnell, and we'll go from there. And defensively, it was a really good staff. And you think about the fact that Marvin Lewis, four-cherry guy, played high school football against him. And he was up with as a fellowship coach in Kansas City. Dick LeBeau, bring him in. You know, he knows a little bit about football. And then Dom Capers, who was down there with New Orleans Saints with Steve Sidwell, he would run the 34 defense. And I told him, listen, you put this in how you want to do it, and we're all going to kind of have our input into this. And so it was a great staff. You know, I remember when I first got the job, I got to share this story with you. I went back to Kansas City after that. Mr. Rooney and Art, they said, you want to be the next head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers? I go, heck yeah. So I'm going back there and I'm thinking to myself, wow, if I don't screw this up, I can go back in 3 years to my 20th high school class reunion with Carleton High School, being the head coach of my hometown team. So my first goal, Merril, truly was not the playoffs. Just don't get fired your first 3 years. Can you go back to your 20th high school class reunion? And I did go back, and we were on the Gateway Clipper. It was a dinner cruise. And the last thing I would say is you don't want to go on a dinner cruise because you can't get off. And so that was all my buddies were telling me all the things I should be doing, all the moves I should be making, how many tickets they want. And I had nowhere to go because that dinner cruise was going up and down the river until we finished.
That's great.
Well, Bill, I will tell you this. You had obviously an incredible staff, and I know you know, and everybody in football knows that is a vital component to being successful, but somebody ultimately has to orchestrate it. And I'm going to tell you this, I've said it before, but it gives me a chance. The thing that stood out for you and what makes you such a great coach and why you are in the Hall of Fame is we didn't love playing for you. Like, we wanted to play for you. And that combination, I don't know that I could give a coach a higher compliment when that's what drives you. And that's how you moved us as players. So you being in the Hall of Fame, there's a lot of players out there that are excited for you, happy for it. And your genuine thought process just tells you why actually you're special, quite honestly. So we couldn't be happier for you, my friend.
Thank you.
Now, Art, this question goes to you. And I kind of find this actually mind-blowing. I want to make sure I got this right. There's 10 teams in the National Football League that have 5 or fewer Hall of Famers listed as primary candidates. The Steelers are going to introduce 5 new Hall of Famers, even though they come from 2 different classes altogether, in one induction, from Bill Nunn, Alan Faneca, Troy Polamalu, Donnie Shell, and obviously Bill Cowher. Can you put a perspective on what that means to the Steeler organization?
You know, Merril, it's actually hard to put a perspective on it because it's so unusual and really so fantastic to have all 5 of these men come in at the same time and really just each one of them so deserving and so special. And you know, it's just going to be such a fun time in Canton. And you know, I've been telling our people we have to go find the biggest tent in Ohio because we're going to have a big party and there's going to be a lot of people wanting to come to this one. That's for sure.
Well, there's no doubt about that. You know, Bill, I know that you've talked a lot about Troy Polamalu, who's being inducted in the same class as you are, but 2 guys that you work close with, I'd love to hear your insights on them, Bill Nunn and Alan Faneca.
Yeah, Bill Nunn. I mean, my gosh, you go back, you know, I think one of the first things as you do in the National Football League is, you know, it's the acquisition of players, right? I mean, it's through the draft, and that was the only way that you built a team back when I first came in, even when I was brought up with Marty Schottenheimer. And even as an assistant coach, you're a little bit more on the outside than you are on the inside in terms of how you structure these boards, and, you know, you get asked your opinion. But as I got into the process when I first got there, boy, the one thing that was so evident was Bill Nunn in the room. When Bill Nunn talked about a player, and you knew that he was such an integral part of the 70s and going down to Texas and getting, you know, the Mel Blunts and Joe Greens and, you know, the stalwarts from these small schools. But to listen to him talk about these guys as players, and Bill Nunn, another Pittsburgher, grew up right there, you know, in Pittsburgh. And so, I don't know, to me, he epitomizes what a lot of Pittsburghers are. This guy was genuine. He was a hard worker. He had a great feel for people. He had a great feel for football players. And he kind of sat back and he listened a lot too. And so talk about a mentor from the standpoint of learning how to run a draft or be a part of a draft. Bill Nunn was that. And, you know, when you think about Alan Faneca, my gosh, the 98 draft coming off the 97 season to get this offensive line. And we all know it starts up front. Merril, you know, as a running back, some of the offensive line, it starts right there. It starts right there in the trenches. And Alan Faneca came in from day one and you know, kind of feeling his way along in the National Football League, but it did not take him long to just stick this guy in there at left guard. And everything that we wanted to do, it was going to be around him. If we ran left, it was behind Alan Faneca. If we ran right, we pulled Alan Faneca and ran around him again. He was such a great part, and he was a leader. You know, there's certain guys that come in, Alan would come in at times and it said, you know, Coach, isn't it time like we go put the shells on, we can take the pads off? And I'd say, you know what, Alan, we're almost there. We are almost there. If we do this a couple weeks in a row, then you know what, you're right. You know, I want to make sure this was not just a one-time experience. We had success. We cannot let it go to our heads. And so he was a spokesman for the offense. You're like, Alan, go tell Coach. Maybe today we'd go in shells. And so just a great guy. He's been so patient. He's been so long overdue. And I know when we were down there and Art was there at that dinner last year with Troy and Donnie, and oh man, the history of the people in that room, and, you know, Joe Green and Franco, and just going down the line. And Alan was there. As disappointing as it was for him not to get in, he still came there to celebrate with us. And is so glad and so deserving that this year we get to celebrate with him.
Bill, those are awesome insights. You know, I know that people see on CBS and the NFL shows now, you do such an amazing job in that perspective, but that is not the only thing you're doing. You know, you're writing a book right now. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I'm down where I'm at right now in Bald Head Island, right? And so you go into the Hall of Fame and you have all these plans that you're supposed to have in the spring. Everything gets, okay, cancel. And they kept saying, hey, maybe it's time you want to write that book. And I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe you're right. It's probably is because I'm in very reflective mode with all the social justice issues that were coming up. And it just seemed like the right time to have the right perspective. And it's called Heart and Steel. It's going to come out on New Year's. It's going to come out on Father's Day. And like I said, it's a book it's a memoir of my life growing up in Pittsburgh, my time in NC State, in the pros, my 15 years with the Steelers. And it's also about my transition from the Steelers into to my next life. And it's been with the CBS. And along the way, I lost my father. I lost my wife. I've tried to transition at that time into where I am today with my new loving wife and, you know, the blended family that we have and 5 grandkids. So, you know, I always just thought life is about transition, but having balance and having the right perspective. And this pandemic, to me, has given me some very clear feelings about all those things. And I think it will come out in this book, which will come out on Father's Day. Heart and Steel, collaboration with Michael Hawley. Forward written by that man, Art Rooney.
I have no idea. I have no doubt that it will be a bestseller. And I think obviously it'll resonate with Steeler Nation, but with those stories and your challenges and your transitions and the message is going to be there, it'll translate to a lot of people, you know, not just in sports, but out of sports. So we wish you the very best of luck with that. And we'll look forward to it coming out. Hey, Art, we got about 5 months. You're going to have 5 new Hall of Famers that enter the Hall. You've already mentioned how big the tent is going to have to be. So when you look at the 2021 season, how special does this season, how special does this season look with that being the start of the season?
You know, Merril, that is a great way to start a season, that's for sure. And then it'll be special when we bring each of them back sometime during the season to present them their Hall of Fame rings. And hopefully by then we'll have a full stadium of fans to cheer on and really welcome each of these individuals back to congratulate them on being inducted. And, you know, it's just going to be a very special time and a special season for all of that.
We look forward to it. It will be awesome for 2021. Art, this is actually for both of you guys. I'll start with you, Art. In 1997, you guys played the Bears in Dublin. How did that game come about?
Well, as you can imagine, Merril, my father wanted to play a game in Dublin for a long time. And he finally convinced another owner, the McCaskey family over in Chicago, that this might be a good idea. And actually, we had pretty good attendance. You know, it was somewhat of a long shot. I mean, we like to think that NFL football is, you know, is well known worldwide. And the truth of the matter is, in Ireland, you know, rugby is a much bigger deal than American football. But it was great. It was a great game. It was a lot of fun. I'll let Bill tell the story about the trophy that turned out to be one of the more coveted trophies in Steeler history.
And I have to share this story, Merril. It's great. So we're over there practicing against the Chicago Bears, and it's one of those 5th preseason games. So, you know, you get all your practice starters go in and they practice all week and you let the other guys play the game. Very vanilla stuff that you do that first week. It's an extra game. So I think it's Thursday. We're in there. We go down and we have this luncheon and we have them come up and all of a sudden the McCaskies are there and Dave Wanstead's there. And so we're sitting there and all of a sudden they come up and they go, and they unveil, they go, wow, here's what they unveil, a piece of crystal. I'm standing next to Dan and to Patricia. And all of a sudden, Patricia goes, Dan, look how beautiful that crystal is. That would look so great in our trophy case back at Three Rivers Stadium. I've never seen a piece of crystal, and it's from Ireland. And all of a sudden, and Dan goes, you're right, yeah. And he looked right up at me, and he goes, Patricia really loves that piece of crystal, Coach. I go, yep, she really does. And it goes to the winner. I went right back. I told Chan Gailey, I told Jim Haslett, number one, let me see what you got game plan wise. Okay, I want a little bit more elaboration with the game plan. And remember when I said the starters, we're gonna rest them this week? Let's let them go out there for the first quarter anyway to get a couple of good, just get things going. I go, we've never done this before. I go, no. We have to win this game. I says, Mrs. Rooney loves this piece of crystal. And Mr. Rooney just gave me that look like, we're winning this game, right, Coach? I'm going, yep, we're going to win this game at all costs. So we did win the game. And in the crystal, I think still is in the trophy case, I think, right, Art?
Oh yeah, we still have the trophy, and we have a great picture of, in fact, one of my favorite pictures of my mother and dad is with that trophy. So thanks to Bill and all the starters who played much more that day than they ever expected to play in a preseason game.
All I know is Chan and Jim Haslett going, what happened? Like, he was fine before he went to that luncheon.
Well, you know what? That was absolutely, I mean, that's what football is all about, those great stories. Thanks for sharing that with us, Bill. Hey, Bill, last St. Patrick's Day, you were supposed to be in Pittsburgh being honored at the annual Ireland Fun Gala, which obviously got canceled. Well, it's not the gala, but it is St. Patrick's Day today. Do you have an announcement you'd like to make?
Yeah, I really do, Merril. You know, I think last year I was coming in to come for the Ireland Fun Gala, which is just amazing what they do and what they're able to raise and to give back to the Ireland. And that's been a big part of everything that I ever learned about when I came back to Pittsburgh. And, you know, when you think about your presenter for the Hall of Fame, it really, I think about your mentor, not just your presenter. And you think about the two guys who, two of my biggest mentors, Marty Schottenheimer, played for him, coached for him, transformed who I did and what I thought about. And then Dan Rooney came there 34 years old. The stories, the lessons, the history, just the principles that he stood for. I certainly left there a better coach, but also left there a better person. And when you think about their presenter, when I got nominated into the Hall of Fame on that Saturday night, I was coming back that night and I remember sitting there with V. And the next day I saw Jimmy going, I'm going, I guess, who would be my presenter? And V and I looked at each other and go, this is a no-brainer. I'm going in there as the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers for 15 years. That's why I'm going in. I went in there because I was introduced to Pittsburgh as a kid. I came back there as a professional, and I learned how to be a professional because of the Rooney family. And I say it all, from Patricia to Dan, to John and Pat, his brothers, to everybody. If you say Dan, Pat, John, or Chris, you're going to find a Rooney somewhere in there. Okay, there's enough of them. And to me, that was a no-brainer. My presenter is going to be Art Rooney. And I called up Art that night. I said, Art, you're the only one because you knew me before and you knew me after. You knew what our family was all about because it's all about dynamics of family. I was working for one and I watched and we vacationed together. We were one big family. Yes, you're held accountable. Yes, you had to make tough decisions. But no one knew me better or knows me better than Art Rooney. And Art, it's an honor to have you present me at the 2020, being a part of the Centennial class of 2020. Thank you.
Yeah, it's going to be a great honor. And you know, Merril, I was sitting at home last year and my phone rings and it's Bill and had no idea what he was calling about. And, you know, when he told me this, I was really just speechless. And it is going to be a great honor. And, you know, having worked with Bill that close for 15 years and really knowing each other and really having our families pretty much grow up together. It just so happened that our kids were all about the same age. And so, you know, it was a fantastic 15 years and it's great that our relationship has continued until today. And so it's going to be a very special time, that's for sure.
Well, I'm truly excited, and Steeler Nation will be excited for you both here in a few months. Art, before we conclude, we know that the Ireland Fun Gala got canceled 2020, 2021. Do you have any plans or can give you some updates for 2022?
Actually, Merril, we haven't given up on 2021 yet. Obviously, we're not able to have the gala on St. Patrick's Day again this year, but we're going to look to possibly do something this summer to make this summer even more special. And So we'll be letting people know when we get it scheduled. But we just decided that we couldn't let another year go by without an Ireland Fun dinner and a celebration. And of course, with Bill going into the Hall of Fame, there's even more to celebrate. So I think it'll be sometime in June and July, and it'll be a great time.
Well, that is great news. I'm happy for that. Steeler Nation will be happy for that. Hey, listen, I can't tell you both how grateful I am just to be a part of this. I said at the very beginning, you're two of the greatest people I've ever met. I can see why the collaboration worked. Your class acts, Art. I know that your dad and your grandfather could not be more proud of how you run the organization. And Bill, there are so many people that respect you, admire you. Not just Steeler Nation, which is literally millions, but we can't be more happy for the final induction here in 5 months. And thank you for joining us, and go Steeler Nation.
Thank you, Merril, for doing this. And you were a class act yourself, my friend. Enjoyed coaching you, and what you represent and what you stand for speaks for itself. And certainly, Art, looking forward to the golf outing and for the Ireland Fun Gala, and then do this again in August. This is great. We can just do this every couple months. Let's keep having celebrations. We'll come back and do the ring thing in the fall.
Sounds good, Bill. It's going to be a busy year. We'll get you in Pittsburgh a lot this year. That'll
Absolutely.
be great. And thanks, Merril.
Thank you both.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy
Same to you guys.
Everybody.